Okay, so the next step in setting up the controller is looking at the DHCP server. So DHCP, if you've not encountered it before, stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Now that might not mean much to you, but essentially what it means is all about assigning IP addresses to devices. So any device that's on a network must have an IP address that allows communication to happen and for data to be passed in and out of it. So whether it's a smartphone or a laptop or a server or a PC or the controller, an AP, anything, they're all going to have an IP address. So, and that's managed via DHCP. And the reason we have DHCP is so it enables devices to go in and out of different networks and be assigned an applicable IP address for that network and allow for data to pass in and out. So the controller can act as a DHCP server. So of course, if we're going to use it in that manner, which is the way that you would use it when you're using it to manage the wireless network, we're going to have to set up a few things in that menu. So let's have a look at the software. So if you click on the network menu again, you may have spotted this already because it's just below the LAN and WAN settings. We've got our DHCP settings. So if you click on DHCP, you'll see that it opens up a drop down menu and there's a couple of options there. We don't need to worry about the static and the client lists at the moment because we haven't got anything connected. So, but eventually you'll be able to see APs that are connected, wireless client devices that are connected. Anything that's on this network will appear in the client and the static list depending on what kind of IP address they have. So of course if a device is set with a static IP and is connected into this network, it will appear in the static list, and then all DHCP devices will appear in the client list. But for now, we need to set up the service and manage it how we want to manage it. And there's a number of ways of doing this. So it all depends on how the client or yourself wants to set the network up. So you'll see on this page, there's a series of things that we need to look at. First of all, we need to make sure that the DHCP setting at the top is set to server, because this is going to be, or manage the DHCP. So it needs to be set to server. Then we're going to look at the starting IP address. So this may depend on how many IP addresses you're going to allow in the network. It also may depend on how many static IP addresses there are. Now, by default, it's set to start at 100, which means that, if we remember back to our LAN, our subnet within our LAN menu was 172.16.0. So it means the first IP address that's going to be given to a DHCP client will be 100. Okay, so you might decide that actually we want to start at 50 or we want to start at 150, who knows. So 100 is a good place to start, because if you do have static IP addresses within the network, they can be set to lower values, and that keeps the DHCP clients away from the static IPs. So choose a starting IP. Okay, that's the first thing. Then we're going to decide how many IPs we're going to allow within the network. So so you've got a default value there, and again we can modify this as we see fit. So we could just say we're only going to allow 100 clients on at a time. So, and that will obviously restrict the network. So if it is a guest network, you want to restrict how many IP addresses are given, then you can do that within this menu. So we've got control of the network and how we're going to allow the IP addresses and the users to be on it. And actually the next field, the DHCP lease time, is linked as well, because lease time is all about how long the IP address is valid for. So by default, the controller is set to 120 minutes, so it's a 2-hour lease time. So it means after 2 hours, if the client device is on the network, the IP address will become invalid and the device will drop off. And obviously they could reconnect it at a later time should they need to. Okay, so after you've decided what your DHCP lease time will be, you just need to look at a couple of the things on this page before we finish the DHCP configuration. If you want to change the name of the domain, then you can, and that's done in the next field down, fairly self-explanatory. And then the last two options are your DNS settings. So just you can refer back to your WAN if you want to. Obviously don't forget, if you navigate away from this page you'll lose any of the settings, but if you remember from our WAN page, if you did see the LAN and WAN video, the main DNS will be your main ISP router's IP address. So when we looked at that video, we were using 192.168.1.1 because that was the first IP within that range. Now that may not be the IP address that you need to use for the DNS. You'll need to check and see what the router IP address is within the network that you're using. So just check that out. That can be inserted in that field. And then the other secondary DNS, we can just use Google's public DNS, which is 8.8.8.8. Okay, so insert those values into those fields, and then once you've finished, click Save. And that concludes your DHCP setting. So do have a look at the other videos about the controller within this series, and there's more information on our website at antiference.co.uk. So thanks.